Under Jamaican law, if you walk into a bank and deposit $1 million in cash, you're a suspect. But the Prime Minister of Jamaica cannot explain how his net worth grew by $51.6 million in just 5 years. And he's still sitting in Jamaica House. So, tell me, who exactly is the law for? Before we go any further, let me introduce you to the cast. Because this story has characters, and they deserve to be called exactly what they are. So the Prime Minister, will refer to him as Andrew Baba. Like Ali Baba, the man who found the cave and helped himself. The Minister of National Security, will refer to him as Horace Sham. Because everything he tells you turns out to be exactly that. The Minister of Education and Information, will refer to as Dana Morris Fiction. Because facts are optional when your job is to protect and to twist the narrative. And Cabinet Member Andrew Wheatley, we refer to him as Wheatley the Wealthy. $164 million in assets that the IC says he cannot explain. So remember those names, because by the end of this, hopefully you won't forget them. Let us deal with facts, real numbers. So under Section 101A of the Proceeds of Crime Act, POCA, it is illegal for you as a citizen of Jamaica to conduct a cash transaction of $1 million or more. $1 million, which is less than 8,000 US dollars. So if you're a contractor who just got paid in cash, you cannot walk into a bank and deposit your own earnings without triggering a report to the authorities. If you're a higgler who saved up over years of hard work, you cannot pay off a debt, you can't purchase property, or set a financial obligation in cash above that threshold without the FID potentially knocking on your door. And if you try to split the money up into smaller transactions to stay under the limit, that is also a crime. They call it structuring. So the parish court can fine you $3 million or imprison you for 3 years for that. The circuit court, 10 years behind bars. And if you're traveling and you're carrying more than 10,000 US dollars or its equivalent, you must declare it at the border with clear proof of source and purpose for that money. You see, that's the law. That's the law for all of us. Now let us talk about Andrew Baba. So the Integrity Commission of Jamaica, the body created specifically to hold public officials accountable, investigated whether the Prime Minister owned assets disproportionate to his lawful earnings. What did they find? So they found that Andrew Baba's net worth grew by $51.6 million in the 5 years ending December 2021. So they found 4 bank accounts he had not declared. They found companies linked to him that filed nil tax returns despite millions in transactions. His statutory declarations have been uncertified since 2021. Not 1 year, not 2 years, 5 years of unresolved declarations from the man who signs your laws. The Integrity Commission referred the matter to the FID. They referred it to the Tax Administration of Jamaica. They said there can be no finality without further investigation. And what did Andrew Baba do? So, he went to the Supreme Court, filed about 23 orders and declarations trying to shut down the entire investigation. He called the Integrity Commission's report unlawful, unfair, unconstitutional. He's even trying to have the illicit enrichment provision of the Corruption Prevention Act struck down. The very law that requires him to explain where his wealth came from. So think about that. The man who cannot explain $51.6 million in net worth growth is trying to make it illegal to ask him. And while the courts deliberate, he remains in office, collecting our taxes as his salary, unbothered, uncertified, and still signing your laws. And it is not just Andrew Baba. His cabinet minister, Wheatley the Wealthy, The Integrity Commission's Director of Investigation concluded that Dr. Wheatley acquired assets disproportionate to his lawful earnings in the amount of approximately $164 million between 2013 and 2022. $164 million that this government minister cannot explain. And he's now being recommended for criminal charges. And then there's the man who is supposed to keep you safe. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security and Defense and Peace, Horace Sham. For years, Jamaicans were told that body cameras were coming. The cameras are on order. The cameras have arrived. The cameras are being deployed. Be patient. And then Horace Sham stood up at a post-cabinet press briefing and told you with a straight face that police officers wearing body cameras on planned operations was, and I'll quote, a crazy idea. Meanwhile, Indicom, Jamaica's own independent oversight body, confirmed that 311 civilians were shot and killed by members of the security forces in 2025 alone, a 65% increase over the previous year, in what I think was 252 fatal shootings investigations. And there was not a single body-worn camera activated, not one. In fact, when cameras were present, they were switched off or they were turned on after the shooting was already done. So every word is a sham. This same man who stood in Parliament and told you that the deal to bring thousands of foreign deportees into Jamaica under third country national arrangement was a US request, not Jamaica's idea, not his idea. However, a diplomatic note from the United States Embassy in Kingston says a Jamaican cabinet minister proposed the arrangement for up to 10,000 third country nationals to transit this island. They say one thing, the document always says another. That is not miscommunication, that is a sham. A clear sham. And then let's Dana Morris Fictions, Minister of Education and Information, who stood up and told you this government deeply believes in human rights, while simultaneously threatening to go after every and any Jamaican who spreads what the government decides are blatant lies online. Think about the arrogance of that. The government whose Prime Minister cannot certify 5 years of financial declarations wants to decide what is true. The government whose Security Minister presided over 311 civilian deaths without a single camera rolling wants to police your speech. The government whose cabinet minister is facing charges for 164 million in unexplained assets wants to come after you for speaking your mind online. That is not governance. That is a political protection racket. And Dana Morris Fiction is the one writing these press releases. So, I'm speaking directly to every civil servant in Jamaica. Every teacher whose classroom lacks books and basic resources while ministers accumulate wealth they cannot explain. Every nurse working double shifts in an underfunded, understaffed hospital while a cabinet minister sits on $164 million in assets he did not earn through his salary. Every customs officer who has stopped an ordinary Jamaican at the border and demanded proof of source of funds, knowing full well that the man at the top of the chain, of your chain of command, has 5 years of uncertified declarations and 4 undeclared bank accounts. Every police officer who has been sent on a planned operation without a body camera and knows exactly why those cameras stay off. Every bank teller who has flagged a small business owner, a market vendor, a hard-working Jamaican for a cash deposit over $1 million under a law that cannot seem to find its way to Jamaica House. Every revenue officer, every public servant, Every Jamaican who has ever been made to feel like a criminal for handling your own money in your own country, I am calling on you. Make your voices heard nationally, visibly, no, not with violence, not with destruction, but with the most powerful weapon any citizen holds: your presence, your participation, your solidarity, your refusal to be silent. Speak at your workplaces, take your lunch breaks to the street, go online, protest. We must demand that the Financial Investigation Division, which we know exists to investigate financial crimes, apply the same standard to Jamaica House like it applies to every single ordinary Jamaican. You see, ordinary Jamaicans are held accountable for far more less. We need to demand that the Director of Public Prosecutions explain publicly why 51.6 million in unexplained network growth and 5 years of uncertified declarations does not move at the same speed as a market vendor under scrutiny for $1 million cash deposit. We need to demand that every minister who can't certify their declaration resign or be removed. And if they don't be removed, we will move them with our voice, with our vote, with our feet in the street, and with our absolute unapologetic refusal to be governed by people who doesn't want to even govern or be governed themselves. A few days ago, Andrew Barber said this in Parliament.
Madam, you are a Madam, you are a bully. Madam, you are a bully. You are a bully. You are a bully, and you will not bully us. You are.
Mr. Prime Minister, you are the bully. You bullied the Integrity Commission with Supreme Court injunctions. You bullied the Jamaican people with 5 years of uncertified declarations. You bully civil society with ministers who call accountability a crazy idea. You bully the truth with Dana Morris fiction. You bully the poor with the Proceeds of Crime Act that cannot find its way to your house or Jamaica House. But hear this clearly and let it settle. You will not bully us from seeing the truth. You will not bully us into silence. And you will not bully this nation into forgetting what you cannot explain. There's one law, Prime Minister, or no law.